Barakatha Yahweh, Barakatha Yahweh Shai, Barakatha Yahweh, Barakatha Yahweh Shai, Barakatha Yahweh, Barakatha Yahweh Shai. All praise unto Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, Wahara Kakadash. Double honors unto the apostles of Great Millstone, and honors unto your brothers that be pushing this truth in sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. So this video here is going to be going into the death that's been brought about by way of Esau coming into power, and pretty much since around about the 1900s, when knowledge started increasing and the advent of the Industrial Revolution that came by way of the assembly line, you've had death increase within the world, because largely Esau, okay, which is the so-called white man, predominantly, but we also know the other nations have been mingled into that, and Israelites have been mingled into this thing of being so-called white, but predominantly the Edomites are white in appearance, to put it into layman's terms. But since pretty much Esau's, his mindset is about making money, right? It's always been about the having the carnal upper hand, I'll put it. Okay, whether it's be through the military, whether it is to have to take all the lands within the world, or whether it is to have more money than the next Edomite even. All right, they've always liked having the carnal upper hand, and as a result, the earth has had to pay for it. So I'll go through a brief history, and before I read the article, and obviously I'll go into the scriptures in a second. But if we go through a brief history on who Esau is, why the earth is in the situation that it's in right now, and then I'll go into the article. So pretty much when you go into the scriptures, you find out that all the people that are within the earth right now, walking wherever they're walking, you know, going about their business, they come from 18 nations, 18 tribes, all right, 18 progenitors within the scriptures. So it's not that everybody comes from Adam. The scripture talks about how everybody comes from Adam within the book of 2nd Ezra, how we all come from Adam, and also to the people whom the Most High has chosen. So there's a distinction. So what other distinctions do we have? Okay, what group of people was chosen? How do you distinguish that they was chosen? Through the father's line. Okay, we find out that the children of the man Israel, that is of the chosen line. All right, we find out that there are 17 other nations, and they are one of those 17 nations is prophesied that they was going to be destroyed and wiped off the face of the earth. Now, here's where it is poetic justice. Okay, I might actually do that as a second video. I'll skip that point because I'm going to do that as a second video. All right, but let's go back into the history. You find out that 17 other nations other than the chosen nation, which is the children of Israel. He, the prince with the power, is what the word Israel means. And you find out that there was one particular nation within the earth that was going to play the part of the devil. So you got he, the prince with the power, so the sons of the Most High. All right, these are the children of God. Okay, and you also had you've also got what's known as the children of men. Okay, those are the 16 other nations within the earth. But there is the children of Satan, which is the Edomites, that came out of the loins of Isaac, the man Isaac. All right, and then Jacob, the chosen line. Okay, the princes with the power were brothers unto the man Esau. But the blessing that was given unto Esau was the sword. All right, which is the sword is a killing instrument. And by way of the technologies that they get with the sword, they've been able to change the face of the whole earth. Okay, so you had the actual physical sword that Alexander was conquering lands with. Then came about the Industrial Revolution, and you had the Gatling gun, the machine gun, and then subsequently the ICBM nuclear missile. And with all of these advancements in weapons technology, you also had advancements in how they produce things. Because if you got an assembly line of military weapons, you also got an assembly line for everything else. Okay, the technology, the military technology is always the most advanced, and it trickles down to the modern day people. So you're talking about the most advanced cars and the most advanced vehicles out there. Those are the military vehicles that subsequently trickle down to what? To the everyday person. That is to say, when the technology comes out, the first people that's going to be looking at that and seeing if it's going to be beneficial to them, that is to say, if they're going to buy it out, is the army, man. Okay. Now, that's me tying in the industrial side of things that Esau goes about with, also to prophecy and to his blessing, which was the sword. And that was spoken about within the book of Genesis, the 27th chapter. Now, why am I speaking about all of these things? Because ultimately that has a byproduct, okay? I believe the statistic says that the number one producer of waste materials is the American army, all right? The byproduct of all of these technologies that they have out here is that there's a lot of waste within the world. All right, you got it to where you got the plastic epidemic out there, which I'm gonna do another video shortly after this, or maybe a little bit later on. All right, going into the plastic thing. All right, also too, you got you got all the earth. All right, I mean, I don't know too much. Well, you got exhaust fumes coming out the car, so that's not a good thing. You got them extracting oil out of the ground. That's not a good thing, because whenever you have metals rubbing up against metals, you got to put oils in there, right? Now, where'd you get the metals that you put into your car? Where'd you get the metals that you put into your fridge? Okay, and where'd you get the metal you put into everything? You get it out of the ground, all right? That means to say when the earth moves over each other, what's known as tectonic plates move over each other, all right? You gotta have a lubricant there, all right? That's gonna make it to where the transition is smooth. Now check it out. They've been drilling all of that oil out of the ground, all right, and putting it into your vehicles and then polluting the whole earth. Well, they was gonna be a byproduct of all of those things, and as a result, you got it to where there's a lot of animals within the world, including people, because cancer is at all-time high, asthma is at all-time high. All right, when people go back to the so-called islands when they're going on holiday, whenever they come back, they quickly fall sick. But this is supposed to be an advanced society. Well, I'm here to tell you it's not an advanced society, because if any person that had any kind of intelligence knows that they shouldn't be burning something that's going to make their own earth worse off, they should know that putting waste materials out there that's going to be detrimental to their children's future is a no-no. So they'll go about a different way of it. All right. Prior to these cars being on the streets, people knew how to ride horses, man. Now, how many people really know how to ride a horse these days? Okay. The Most High created instruments, okay, animals there was animals within the world that were created to move you from point A to point B. Now you could talk about time, but hold up in a minute. If it wasn't for sin, man was able to live for 1,000 years. That's within the scriptures, man. But by way of sin, the age of which a man dies now is what? 70 years, which is 70 years, right there or thereabouts. But prior to Adam eating, being succumbed to his woman, all right, when you didn't have a sin within the world, okay, Adam lived to a full day, which was 1,000 years. So the thing of time shouldn't have been even a problem, okay? But nevertheless, the Most High created instruments, vehicles, animals that was going to move you from point A to point B, and all they ate was grass all day, man. All right, and that's just the cars and whatever. I mean, you should be getting the gist of what I'm trying to say here. So this is the so-called researcher David Attenborough, of which he's a nut job, because he's heavy into that what do they call it? What's the name of this thing? The Big Bang Theory. Okay, they're heavy into that Big Bang Theory, and he's heavy into that evolution theory. All right, but he makes a few points here that what's known as so there's theoretical science, which is the Big Bang Theory and the evolution theory. All right, and then there's what's known as empirical science, where you make a calculation. So if there are 100 cows today and tomorrow there's only 30 left, that means 70% of all the cows have died. All right. And this is what's known as empirical science, and he goes into empirical science here. So he says, our children's generations is going to have to reduce their carbon emissions by 90%. I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of the carbon thing and what's affecting what and what. All we can say empirically is that since Esau's been given the blessing of the sword and he's been able to exercise it fully from the 1900s, you've had the earth. The planet Earth, the whole entirety of the Earth, whether you're talking about, caterpillars, okay, worms, all right, trees, grass, okay, cows, All right, animals that you ain't ever seen in the ocean that way. They've all felt the destructive force of this man Esau, okay, which is the devil and Satan. And the scripture says, which I'm gonna read in a second, if the Lord wasn't, if the Lord don't come soon, pretty much there wasn't gonna be any flesh left to save. And there's a particular number, there's a particular numbers that he puts out here, all right, which is here, all right. So he says that our children's, so that's what he's talking about. But really what I'm interested here is the numbers, the empirical science, right? Nothing theoretical, not this affects this theoretic in theory. No, just that you've been in power for this long, and this is the effect of you being in power. So it says pointing out that 70% of the bird species around the world were extinct. Okay. Let me read up actually. It says Christine Lagarde, managing director of the IMF, asked David about the link between the climate change and migration, and he replied, "It's happening in Europe. People are coming from Africa because they can't live where they are." I don't know the ins and outs of the climate change. I couldn't tell you about that. All right, but we just know. I can just tell you what I know until I get taught more. All right, it says people are coming from Africa because they can't live where they are. He warned the crisis would worsen as temperatures continue to rise. More parts of the world become uninhabitable, and that's what will happen. And it is hard to exaggerate the perils. This is the new extinction, and we are halfway through it. We're in terrible trouble, and the longer we wait to do something about it, the worse it's going to get. Pointing out, now this is the point where I'm calling it, stuff that you can calculate. Pointing out 70% of the bird species around the world were extinct. That didn't happen in the time of King David. That didn't happen in the time of King Solomon. Hell, that didn't happen in the time of the Babylonians, the Assyrians. All right. He said we have time now, 10 years, perhaps 20 years, to do something about it. The longer we wait, the more difficult it's going to be for us to live, and so on and so forth. Right. And he says, I have been a fan of David ever since I started watching his animal programs in the 1950s. Now at age 92, so that's not what I want. What else can we pull out of here? All right, so this whole thing, okay, so that's okay. Let's read this. It says we need to force governments to act and set ambitious targets by 2020 to protect plants, mammals, birds, insects on the basis of global food production, clean water. The loss of biodiversity is the silent killer. Christina Pasca Palmer told The Guardian, but people don't notice it in the way they notice climate change. It says 1992, over 30% of the planet's ecological wealth, defined by species, rivers, soil, and forests, have been wiped up. So that's not even like animals. That's talking about the biodiversity, right? The ecological diversity. We're talking about just ground, good soil, lost. Imagine you had £1 million, you lose 30% of that. That's a lot to lose. Wiped out with huge consequences for hundreds of millions of people. In the 4 billion years, see, that's all BS again. Let's go to here. Yeah, right. Now we face a new sixth mass extinction caused by the impact of humanity. Now, this is what I always find it interesting, because they always say humanity. This is not humanity. This was Esau, man. All right, this was Esau. This wasn't the Negro, Hispanic, or Native American man. This wasn't the Assyrians. This wasn't the Babylonians. It was you devils, man. You did this. Okay, you are the ones that created these instruments and these devices of death. All right, that's basically brought the whole earth to its knees. Now, this is a good number. It says in our brief history, 83% of the wild mammals have died out in the last 50 years. He says the bird populations, reptiles, and fish have been slashed by 60%. I mean, fuck, man. Okay, if this man's not the devil, who is he then? All right, so let me hit one precept here. No, two precepts. and then we can call it a day. So let's go destroy them which destroy the earth, because that's what the Lord's gonna do, man. He's gonna wipe you Edomites out. Okay, he's gonna take you out because you brought the whole earth to its knees, man. Everybody's jacked up underneath your rulership. So where's this precept? All right, Revelations 11 and 18, it says, and the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come, and the time of the dead that they should be judged, that they should be and thou shouldest give reward unto thy servants the prophets, and to the saints, and them that fear thy name, small and great, and thou shouldest destroy them which destroy the earth. All right, and then one last precept. This is in the book of Matthew 24, I believe. I can search it out. If I put flesh and save, and it should be in Matthew 24. So Matthew 24 and 22, it says, except those days be shortened, which is the times that we're living in now, they should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake those days shall be shortened. So Yahweh Shem Yahshai, say he comes soon, all right, for all the flesh that lives upon the earth, all right, and his servants, the prophets. So with that, I'm going to say, praise unto Yahweh Shem Yahshai Wa'aru Kakadash. And like I said, I forgot to say, this all comes at the back of this Netflix documentary, which is like an expose, you know. This thing is exposing Esau for what he is, but he wants to call it humanity. Now, this is your work, man. Okay, you're the king of Babylon, right? You're the one that runs the world. You got all the money, all right? If you come out with some technology out here, and you're looking for some funding and that, right? These devils are the ones that got the capital expenditure to run it, man. All right, they're the ones that got the monies. So, hey, man, this happened on your watch. Okay, so you're gonna be held accountable for it, and you're the one who created these things, man. All right, these instruments of death. So with that, I'm going to say praise unto Yahweh Shem Yahshai Wa'aru Kakadash, double honors unto the apostles of great millstone. Oh, I was trying to say that, yeah, that's what this is on, it's called Our Planet on Netflix. All right, so with that, I'm going to say, shalom.